Hey Mr. Suhu, today we're doing our Unit 11 video. And can you believe this is our last video that we're ever doing? This is going to be our last one. That's crazy. Alright, but let's jump right into it. Okay, so let's first talk about standard normal distribute. So first here's a normal distribution of just a regular. So with this, for it to be normal, let's just say we have a test and a group of students, let's say it was a test and a group of students had exactly the same amount of answers. So one group had like 100, another group had 80, another group had like 30. So that'd be like sort of like a normal distribution of a graph, or basically. So first, to understand a normal distribution, first you have to know about mean, median, and mode. So basically, the mode of a group of numbers. So if you have a group of numbers, and your mode would be the number that appears the most, and your mean is your average. So you take all the numbers and divide it by how many numbers there is, and then your median is your middle number. Then your median is your middle number of all those numbers. So if you had like, if they was all in a row, 3, 5, let's just say 3, 5, and 6. 5 would be your median because it's in the middle. Okay. So in a normal curve, your mean or your average is always going to be in the middle. And this two sets of numbers next to it, that will be your first standard deviation, or your 68%. Two numbers to it, two numbers from your mean would be your two standard deviation, or 95%. And then the three numbers from your mean or your mean or your average would be three standard deviation, and that would be the 99.7 percentile. Okay, so here's more of a specific normal curve, and it has the same numbers. So for now, you have your 34 percentile, which is the numbers in between your mean and your first standard deviation. Your 13 percentile, your in between the first and second. Your your 2.35 percentile, which is between the second standard deviation, and then your 0.15 percentile, which is in between your third standard deviation. Now, all these numbers can help you find out information from a graph or from a group of data. Like, for example, our percents can help us figure out a lot of information. Like for number one, what percent of American men are between 66 and 74 inches tall? So it'll be 68% because the normal standardization, or your regular mean, is 70. So that'll be right here with a standard deviation of 4 inches. So 1 over would be 74, and 1 back would be 66. So what the graph tells us, or what the question asks, is what is between 66 and 74. So that would be the 68 percentile, because 66 and 74 are in between, are only one standard deviation from the mean. So basically, a normal curve can actually help us prove a lot of information, from kids' test scores to heights to like job averages to a lot of things. And that's why it's always good to have normal standard deviation curves, and it's good to understand them. Okay, so now let's talk about dot plots, box plots, and histograms. So the first thing you want to know, well, for like in general, that your shape of a distribution is, you have to have two of these six things. Either it can be uninomial, binomial, multimonial, that's the one set, and the second set, skewed left, symmetric, or skewed right. Skewed right is basically if all your data is going slantward, so it's coming down. And symmetrical is when it's like a normal curve, just going up and then down. Skewed left is when all your data is sort of going up, so it's like it starts from the right and it's going up. And uninomial is when there's only one hump in your graph or in your data. Binomial is when there's two, and then multimonial is when there's three or more humps. So the first thing we want to do, alright, so now we have our problem. There's 30 students were asked to report the number of TVs in their household. The table below gives their responses. Okay, so here's all the responses of all the students, how many TVs they have in their house. So first thing you want to do is create a plot graph. So you want to start off from your lowest number to your highest number. In this case is 0 to 7. And then you just start marking them. So there's 1, 0. Okay. So yeah, so there's 1, 0. There's about seven ones. And then for our twos, we have 9 twos, 6 threes, 4 people who have 4 TVs, 2 people who have 5 TVs, no people with 6 TVs, and then we only have 1 person with 7. So, and from here you just dot all of your numbers, and then you're done. Once you get done dotting, and you can sort of see that it's a skewed right because the data is starting to go down this way. Now, create a box plot. First, you're going to need to know your Q1, your mean, your Q3, your lowest number, and your highest number. So the easiest thing to do in your calculator. Why would you do that?
Because I'm trying to hear.
Gotcha. Anyway, so the best way to do that, you can just put that inside your calculator, which I already done. So basically, go to Stats, Enter, and then input all your data. So here's all the data from the graph. So now you will go back to Stats, go over, and you will click Enter for your very first one, and then you tell which list you want it from. In my case, it was in the second list. So second 2. Then calculate. So from all these numbers, you would get your 5-number summary. So your minimum, your Q1, your mean, your median. No, your mean. Yes. So your 5-number summary, your Q1, your mean, your Q3, your maximum, and then your minimum. So basically a Q1 is, your Q1 is if you have a whole group of numbers, they're stacked in order, and you take the first half of those numbers, and then you find the median of those numbers, and that'll be your Q1. Your Q3 is if you take the other half of those numbers and find the middle number for that side, and that'll be your Q3. And your maximum is your maximum number in your data, and your minimum is your minimum number. So here, now you have your 5-number summary, which is 0, 0, 1, 2, 3, and 7. So now you would just basically draw a line for 0, and you connect it with 1, and you just draw, first you just draw one full line. 0, 1, 2, 3, and then 7. And then you just draw a little box for your Q1, median, and Q3. And that's how you just get your box plot. That's simple. So now, we want to create a histogram. So first, here they give us a little table right here. So the histogram doesn't tell us what number from 0 to 2. It's saying how many numbers we have from 0 to less than 2. And from here, we have 8 numbers that are 0 and less than 2. We have 15 people that have 2 to less than 4 TVs, 6 people with 4 to less than 6 TVs, and only 1 person to 6 to less than 8 TVs. So you just plug that in. Your frequency numbers you got over here. So you want to go up to your highest number, which is 15. So 3, 6, 9, 12, 15. And over here, you want to go to your highest number on your frequency, so it's 8. So now you just basically fill everything in from 0, less than 2. You go up to 8, 2 to the 4, 15, 4 to 6, 6, and then 8. 6 to 8, which is 1. And that is how you create a histogram using numbers. Okay, so this basically tells us, so I just did part D to find the mean, your standard deviation. Oh, yes. Then your standard deviation will always be this sign right here that has that little, looks like a sideward P, X, and it equals, and I just rounded, so 1.5. will be your standard deviation. And then, since our data is skewed, we can have our interquartile range, which will be your Q3 minus your Q1, and that's 3 minus 1. So your skewed IQR is 2. And describing the distribution. Distribution is uninomial, it has one curve, and it's skewed right because it's starting from the right and starting to go down. And then our median is 2 TVs. Our IQR is also 2 TVs. And that is how you find out information based off of 30 students who were asked to report their TV handout, their TVs in their household. Okay, so now we're going to learn about relative frequency tables and histograms. So here's our problem. We have 30 students in PE class that can run 1 lap around the track. Their times are recorded in seconds and is listed below. Sorry. So here's all of our questions. Now, we didn't have enough room, so we just did it on paper. So for number 1, make a relative frequency table using intervals of 10 starting at 40. So here you have our intervals of 10, 40 to 50, 50 to 60, 50 to, so my bad, it'll be 50, 60 less than 70, 70 to less than 80, 80 to less than 90, and so on, so on. And you just fill everything in from this table. You just fill everything in for your frequency, and then you just put it into a fraction. So there's 30 numbers, there's only one person. So here, you just put in fractions, then round it to a decimal. So for B, it asks us, use a histogram. So now we're going to use our histogram. We're going to go up the y-axis to only 0.3, because that was our highest one over here was 0.3. And we're going our x-axis to all the way to 100, because that's where our lap time was. The highest was 100. And I just fill everything in. And from here you can see that's skewed left, because it starts going up. It starts going upward instead of downward. Actually, it's symmetric. I looked at it wrong. It's symmetric, not skewed left, because there is only one. You can sort of see it's even. Okay. So now, for number C, it's asking us to calculate descriptive statistics and use them in order. Use them to describe center, spread, and shape them of the distribution. So once you input all the numbers into the graphic calculator, you'll basically get the same numbers. So our mean, 76.1, median, 75.5, standard deviation, 13.8. So our shape is uninomial because there's only one hump. It's symmetric because it's all even. And our center, our center will be the mean if it's symmetric. If it's to the left or right, if it goes skew left or skew right, your center would be your median, and your IQR would be the Q3 minus Q1. But since it's symmetric, it is our mean, so it's the same thing, 76.1. And our spread, if it's symmetric, it'll be 13.8. So your spread is the same thing as your standard deviation if it's asymmetric. And your spread, if it was left or right, it'll be your IQR. So for D, it's asking us to calculate the intervals that contain values within one standard deviation of the mean. So our mean is stated up here. Our mean was 76. Our mean was 76.1, and our standard deviation was 13.8. So to find it, you would just put 76 minus 13.8, and then 76 plus 13.8. So, and once you finally do that, you would get your lower bound is 62.3 and your upper bound is 89.8. So for now, for 1E asks us what percentage is observed in the interval on part D. So our percentage will be 20 over 30. It'll be 20 over 30 because 20 people are in between who ran PE between 6.23 seconds and 89.9 seconds, so 20 over 30 people. And once you finally simplify that to a decimal and a you would get 6.667 and equals to 67%. So our 1F is basically asking the same thing, but to go over to 2 standard deviations. So you multiply your standard deviation by 2, add it, minus it, and you'll get 48.5 lower bound and upper bound 103.7. Now there's 29 over 30 people, so this will be our 697 percentile, and it'll be 0.967, and that would be our information for 2 standard deviations. So, and now finally for 1H. So here's an important one. It says, do you consider the distribution to be approximate normal? If not, how's it different? So it would be normal because our percentage are the same as a normal curve, which was our 68% and our 97%. And here is, even though it's not exact, it's still pretty close, 67 and then 97. And yes, it is approximate normal percent. It's normal because they are close to the expected percent of a normal curve. Let's just see Patrick right here. Hey Patrick, it's Patrick on the beat. You know, you're our DJ. You know, what's up? Okay, so that was basically all of our information. So now we're going to talk about... Anyway, so now we're going to talk about... Now we're going to talk about our life lesson. So this is our last reflection. That's crazy. So now, I know, right? So now we want to reflect upon our year and did we meet our goals? I did. Did you meet your goals?
No, I did not.
What was your goals?
To get a 4.0.
To get a 4.0, you didn't meet it? Nah, that was my goal, so I didn't sort of meet. I got 3.8.
Yeah, nobody cares.
Jealous. So that sort of met my goals, but sort of didn't. And to help you meet your goals, you can study more. And what was a real big distraction was the internet, television, people like him. So that's very, distracting. But to stay on goals, you want to study and focus and look straight and think positive and keep all that negative stuff like him out of everything. Oh, so what you learned this year? Patrick, what did you learn this year?
Don't procrastinate.
Don't procrastinate.
Especially taking AP Euro.
Especially taking AP Euro. So, what I learned this year was you gotta stay focused and don't let everything affect you. So, that's one very important thing I learned to take into the future. So, and this is my wrap up of my Unit 11 video, and thanks for watching. I really can't believe this is our last reflection.
You wait till last minute to do all them anyway, so it doesn't even matter.
Shut up. Talk too much.